Let's get started. At number 8, we have Cointel Pro, where the FBI literally mailed America's most famous civil rights leader a suicide note with a 34-day deadline. Martin Luther King Jr. was changing the world with his peaceful protests, but J. Edgar Hoover's FBI saw him as a dangerous threat to the established order. They didn't just want to stop him, they wanted to destroy him completely. FBI agents would arrive at hotels before Martin Luther got there and wire his rooms with hidden microphones. Then they'd set up in the room next door like creepy stalkers, listening to every private conversation through headphones. But the surveillance was just the beginning. The FBI compiled records of Martin Luther's private moments and mailed them to his house along with an anonymous letter that basically said, "Kill yourself in 34 days or we'll destroy your reputation and marriage." King knew exactly who sent it. His team knew exactly who sent it. And they were right. Decades later, investigators found the FBI's draft copy sitting in their own files. The craziest part? This entire evil program was only exposed because some random activists broke into an FBI office in Pennsylvania and stole classified documents. The mission was so secret that, without that break-in, we might never have learned the truth. If you think one government agency terrorizing its own citizens is bad, wait until you hear about what happens when 6 countries coordinate to murder anyone who disagrees with them. Coming in at number 7 is Operation Condor, which created a shared assassination network across an entire continent. Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil didn't just cooperate, they literally shared a database where if any government marked you as a subversive, all member nations would arrest or kill you on sight. But it gets infinitely worse. These governments would kidnap pregnant women, keep them alive until they gave birth, then murder the mothers and give their babies to military families for adoption. The children grew up never knowing their real parents had been executed by the state. And they weren't just operating in South America. In 1976, Condor operatives planted a car bomb in Washington, D.C. that killed Chilean diplomat Orlando Letelier and U.S. citizen Ronnie Moffett, just miles from the White House. Foreign death squads were conducting terrorist attacks on U.S. soil while the government looked the other way. The CIA, the United States Foreign Intelligence Agency, knew everything about Operation Condor. They had detailed reports, funding documents, and even helped coordinate some operations. Speaking of attacks on American soil, at least Condor involved foreigners, but what happens when a foreign government tries to blow up a restaurant full of U.S. senators? At number 6, we have the Iranian assassination plot, where Iran tried to bomb a Washington, D.C. restaurant to kill one Saudi ambassador and didn't care if they murdered 150 U.S. senators in the process. In 2011, the Iranian Quds Force, Iran's elite special operations and foreign intelligence unit, hired the most unlikely hitman imaginable, Mansour Arbabsiar. Mansour was a used car salesman from Texas who could barely organize his own life, let alone an internal assassination. The plan was to blow up Cafe Milano during peak hours when the restaurant would be packed with diplomats, lawmakers, and innocent civilians. Iran was willing to pay $1.5 million for the hit, and they made it clear that massive American casualties were acceptable collateral damage. The plot was stopped just in time when Arbabsiar unknowingly tried to hire an undercover DEA agent as a bomb supplier. U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta called it an act of war, and, for a terrifying moment, the United States nearly launched airstrikes on Iran in response. Arbabsiar got 25 years in prison, but the Iranian officials who ordered the attack? They're still running Iran's intelligence operations today, probably planning their next attempt. While Iran prefers bombs and explosions, China has mastered a much quieter form of warfare. Up next at number 5 is Operation Aurora, where Chinese hackers didn't just attack Google, they literally stole the algorithms that power the world's biggest search engine. This wasn't some random cyber attack by bored teenagers. The People's Liberation Army Unit 61398, China's premier military cyber warfare division, simultaneously penetrated 34 major corporations, including Google, Adobe, Yahoo, Symantec, and defense contractors, in a coordinated assault on the United States' entire digital economy. But here's the really twisted part. The primary target wasn't even corporate secrets. Chinese hackers went straight for the Gmail accounts of Chinese human rights activists living in the United States. They used Google's own systems to hunt down dissidents and political prisoners, turning technology into a weapon against freedom. The hackers had access to Google's source code, user data, and intellectual property for months before anyone noticed. They could read private emails, track activists' locations, and steal technological blueprints, all at the same time. At least the US knows China is its enemy. The most dangerous spies are the ones living right next door. Coming in at number 4 is Operation Ghost Stories, where Russian spies spent decades living as ordinary suburban neighbors while stealing nuclear secrets. Anna Chapman wasn't just a Russian agent. She was a deep-cover illegal, deployed by the SVR, Russia's foreign intelligence service, who had a completely normal suburban life. PTA meetings, backyard barbecues, neighborhood watch groups, all while photographing classified documents and reporting back to Moscow. These people were so deep undercover that some of their own children didn't know their parents' real identities. Imagine the FBI raiding your house and discovering that your mom and dad were Russian spies who had been lying to you your entire life. Russia spent over $100 million over a decade just to maintain this one SVR spy ring. The operation was so sophisticated that they used a technique called steganography, basically hiding secret messages inside normal-looking photos. They would take an innocent family vacation picture, embed encrypted text into the image file itself, and then post it on Facebook like any normal person would. To everyone else, it looked like a harmless photo of kids at the beach. But Moscow's intelligence analysts could extract the hidden data and decode nuclear secrets from what appeared to be just another social media post. Russia was willing to invest decades and hundreds of millions of dollars to place deep cover agents in neighborhoods worldwide. But sometimes the most devastating spies come from the most prestigious places. Up next at number 3 is the Cambridge 5, where the Queen of England's personal art expert was feeding nuclear secrets to Stalin for decades. Anthony Blunt wasn't just some random government employee. He was the keeper of the Queen's pictures with unlimited access to Buckingham Palace. He advised the royal family on their art collection, organized private exhibitions, and was considered one of Britain's most trusted cultural experts. But he was also a Soviet spy. Blunt was part of the Cambridge 5, a spy ring recruited by the NKVD, Stalin's secret police and foreign intelligence agency, straight from Cambridge University that included Kim Philby, Donald MacLean, Guy Burgess, and John Cairncross. These weren't desperate outsiders. They were the elite of British society, who went on to run the country's intelligence services from the inside. The most insane part? Anthony Blunt confessed to being a Soviet spy in 1964, but kept working for the Queen for 8 more years. The British government covered it up to avoid national embarrassment, so, while the Queen was showing off her art collection to world leaders, her personal expert was probably memorizing everything to report back to Moscow. These guys proved that the most dangerous enemies often have the fanciest degrees and work in the most trusted positions. But sometimes, evil spy missions are launched for the most ridiculous reasons imaginable. At number 2, we have the Sony Pictures hack, where North Korea launched a massive cyber attack on Hollywood, all because they couldn't take a joke. In 2014, Seth Rogen and James Franco made a comedy called The Interview, about 2 journalists tasked with assassinating Kim Jong-un. To most people, it was just another silly movie. But to North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, mocking their leader, who's treated like a living god, was like attacking their national religion. The Reconnaissance General Bureau's hackers didn't just break into Sony's computers, they completely destroyed the company's entire digital infrastructure. They wiped out years of data, leaked confidential files, and left employees staring at images of red, grinning skulls on their screens. The damage was so severe that Sony had to shut down and rebuild their entire computer network from scratch. The company lost tens of millions of dollars, had their private emails exposed to the world, and faced international humiliation. All because North Korea couldn't handle a comedy movie. North Korea proved that in the digital age, a nation's pride can be more dangerous than its military, but while they were hacking Sony over a movie, Russia was conducting a much more sophisticated attack on something far more important. Finally, at number 1, we have Russian election interference, where Moscow used memes and fake Facebook posts to turn Americans against each other. In April 2014, 2 years before the US election and before most candidates had even declared, the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, quietly launched the most sophisticated propaganda campaign in history. Using a troll farm called the Internet Research Agency, they got to work dividing America from the inside. By 2016, they had spent just $100,000 on Facebook ads and reached over 126 million people in the United States. That's more people than actually voted in the election. But they didn't stop at online posts. Russian trolls organized real rallies on US soil, tricking citizens into showing up to protests without realizing they were being manipulated by a foreign power. The targeting was surgical. They hit black citizens with voter suppression campaigns, attacked liberal feminists with anti-Biden content, and flooded social media with posts designed to make Democrats stay home on Election Day. And it worked perfectly. While people argued online about politics, Russian agents were creating both sides of the fight and laughing from behind their keyboards in St. Petersburg. Every political meme you shared, every heated Facebook argument you got into, every angry tweet you liked in 2016, there's a real chance it was engineered or amplified by Russian trolls who were paid to make people hate their fellow citizens. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and check out the channel for more videos.